place, rock the 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 place.
Welcome to this new episode of We Talk Audio. I'm your host Luca, and joining me today is Paul Bauman from PdB Sonic Design. Paul, you're quite a little bit of a character and a personality in this industry. So please introduce yourself a little bit better than what I just did.
Okay.
Where did it all start?
Where did it start? Oh boy. Like many people in this business, it started with a love of music and an interest in stereo equipment when I was younger. And, back in those days, it was, records, albums, things like that. And so I guess things really started when it would be like 1983 when I graduated from university with an undergrad in physics. And at the time I was like, I know a lot about nothing really marketable, so if I want to, have a career, I need to specialize in something. And I was like, if I'm going to specialize, I should do something I'm interested in and passionate about. And at the time it was, still music and audio equipment, more like home hi-fi stuff. And and if you think back, 1983 was when compact disc came out, digital audio. And so looking for physics groups, I was very lucky to come across John Vanderkoy and Stanley Lipschitz, University of Waterloo. They were doing research in electroacoustics and digital audio, digital recording, coincident stereo microphone techniques, things like that, which really spoke to me. And it was very close to where I grew up. So it was a pretty natural fit for me to go and study at University of Waterloo. And Stanley Lipschitz, he was applied mathematics professor, but his passion was recording chamber music. So I would say, can I come and be your assistant? And we would go out and record chamber music concerts and then broadcast them live on the campus radio station. So through that, I became interested in recording. And eventually I started to say, hey, can I go out and record some stuff myself? And wound up going out recording alternative, like punk bands, if you want to call it that, in the local clubs, and met people through the campus radio station and sort of got involved in that whole scene. And that's sort of where it all started. And then I guess you could say when I went to where, after I graduated from Waterloo with a master's in physics, electroacoustics, sort of specializing in loudspeaker measurement. That was sort of what my thesis was on. It was still kind of hard to break into the industry, and I was active in the Toronto chapter of the Audio Engineering Society. And again, it was hard to sort of break into the industry, but I still had this interest in recording bands and alternative music projects. And so I was a research engineer at McMaster University, but on the weekends I would still go out and record punk bands and things like that. And so one of these punk bands, I recorded a cassette thing, Dick Van Dyke's Live at the Gown and Gavel, which has become a bit of a collector's item. And then I recorded their first album, which was more of a multi-track, my first sort of multi-track project. And they sort of became successful. They started, going out and playing shows in Toronto and Montreal, Ottawa, and touring. And I would just sort of go and hang out with those guys just because they became friends. And it was, it was fun. So we're in Montreal. I'll never forget, is at the Foufoune Electrique, which is sort of a naughty name for a club. And the house sound guy sort of, asked me who I was, what I was doing. I was just hanging out by the mixing console. I just told him, I engineered their record. And he said, oh, you want to mix tonight? And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, go for it. And I was just sort of saying, wow, this is a lot more fun than being in a studio. It's got a big PA and it's just more exciting. And
it is. It's like live mastering almost.
Yeah, exactly. And this was sort of where I got bit by the big PA bug, you could say.
All right.
Yeah.
And these days, mainly Yeah, we weren't flying speakers in a way that we are flying them today, and
No.
and I recall an infamous press release that was released right after one of the first glass doors in which a turbo sound was hung. This were the days in that I think are very interesting because we were still experimenting a lot rather than doing stuff from more scientific perspective.
It was more empirical,
Yeah.
trial and error.
Which I mean, it's still something that is being done to a certain extent. But then again, how did it all changed? You were there when it changed. Well, you were part of the change.
Yeah. Well, to continue the story is like, I was doing that and still active in the Toronto chapter of the Audio Engineering Society as the chapter secretary. So sometimes people would call up to place an ad looking for, to hire somebody. And I remember one day Brock Adamson called up and said, I'm looking for somebody to do this and this and this, run the engineering department. And he said, do you know anybody who could do that? And I said, I think you're talking to him. So that's when I started with Adamson. And this was with more traditional PA, like horn-loaded, point source, arrayable sound systems. And it was sort of the era of the MH225, B218, and analog digital crossover was one of the products we developed. And this was in the early days of, not the early days, but I guess the early days of the turnkey factory system, the Adamson MH225, EAWKF 850, that's sort of that era of arrayable sound systems. And from there I went to Maryland Sound, which was developing sort of the last generation of the proprietary sound system, like Clare Brothers had, the S4, and Maryland Sound had the MS-12, MS-15, HC-12, HC-15, and so yes, these were like horn-loaded, arrayable, but it's still hard to have a precise pattern control. Yeah. It's not stable with frequencies, so you've got some overlap, interference, it changes with different frequencies. You get comb filtering effects, and it's sort of a good attempt at expanding coverage, but it's kind of like acoustic wallpaper in a way.
And nowadays it's not so much as expanding; it's much more as narrowing.
Yeah, and I mean this was the paradigm shift that L Acoustics brought to the table, is taking all those horn-loaded compression drivers, and if we can put them all together and make one coherent source, it's going to be more efficient. It's going to be more accurate, precise in terms of where you can focus the energy on the audience. More predictable. You can use computer programs to predict the coverage, determine your installation parameters, and that really spoke to me. As a physicist, this was Christian Heil himself was a physicist, and this is the motivation where that whole development came from. So,
and with the stringent restrictions that we have nowadays for venues and most importantly outdoor gigs, and it's something that is definitely taken a more prominent place in the industry now, and to the point that in the last 15 years ish, because I started audio like 15-20 years ago, and we were just in Italy, at least we were just getting the first big line array systems, but now there's a comeback. There's a comeback.
Yeah, I mean there always has been a need for point source type solutions as well, and that was sort of the heritage at L Acoustics. Was the coaxial speaker, the MTD was their first product. So, in terms of distributed point source sound reinforcement, that's always been a valid approach, and even more so now with, immersive audio. That's what we're looking at in a lot of cases, is overhead, side, rear point sources, and it's sort of everything old is new again, maybe you could say.
Yeah.
And I mean, some of the club installs I do these days with George Stavropoulos and Sonic Lab Audio, we sort of partner on a lot of large-scale EDM type shows, festivals, and club installation designs these days. So yeah, that's still a
And I know
approach.
this might be a very dumb question, but there is no dumb questions, right? but what makes it like a good point source? Like those interactions that then you have, and you're definitely gonna have comp filtering at a certain point. But what makes it like still sound good, even if those interactions are happening?
Well, you can think of a good coherent point source is, a coax or a triax, something where you don't have, a separate horn tweeter, woofer tweeter combination where you have, vertical stability issues. You can have decent horizontal, but sometimes the vertical is tricky. But if you can combine those into a coherent point source, then coax, triax, that's I think preferable for many reasons. And then the other option is like a constant curvature arrayable system, like some of the products we see out there from, I mean, ARCs back in the day was a very useful tool as a fill speaker to complement from a sound design point of view.
I'm here taking notes, by the way.
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, you can go back and read some of the manuals I wrote back in my acoustics days.
I shall.
Yes, those were as much about technical sound design sort of guidelines as much as
so going back to those punk rock days, but also to the EDM days of nowadays. What are some of the similarities between the two?
Yeah, sometimes I think EDM is, for me, kind of like the new punk rock because it's sort of very simple and repetitive in some ways, and so it's got that same kind of energy. I sort of enjoy doing some of those shows.
Nice.
And yeah, it was also, I guess I should have mentioned that when this band that I was working with went to do their second record, in between, their bass player was threatening to quit, and I was like, joking at first, saying, just let him go, I'll figure out how to play. And then eventually it's like, you got a month to learn how to play, and I'm like, what do I do?
Almost like Sid Vicious's story, right?
Yeah.
The legend goes that he learned in a night.
Yeah, well, I had a month.
All right, fair enough.
And Mike said to me, well, do what I did. First, learn how to play every Ramones song, and then learn how to play our songs. And he was kind of right, because with the Ramones, it's about stamina and timing,
exactly,
and speed, and then so that was what I wound up doing. It wasn't pretty at first, but by the second record, I think I'd done okay.
Punk is like pretty, but in a non-pretty way. Yeah. Like it's gotta be. It's so simple. So you got, and just like EDM. Some genres of electronic music, the repetitiveness is what it makes it nice. So almost mantra,
hypnotic.
Yeah, exactly. Talking bass, which is always nice. We just had Paul on the show, and we just had Carlos on the show. My brain today. We just back from ISC, so like it's been rough.
Scattered. And I'm jet lagged too, so
yeah, it's been
that's
rough.
My excuse.
It's been rough, but with Carlos we were talking about the Demon. And I know you had a lot to do with it, if not a lot to do with it.
They did all the heavy lifting. I sort of came in and helped out on the preset development for the Demon Sub.
And how do you get, like, other than the physics behind the box? Of course, Carlos was talking about in private. We're not showing you guys, but the differences between our design and what is. I don't want to sound demeaning, but it's kind of an evolution of our EDM sub, saying that it was less resonating in some way, shape, or form. How do you harness all of the physics and then create those presets for the genres of music that they want to play, which is not only EDM, they want to do rock concerts as well?
Well, I mean, something that's accurate is accurate. If it's like if you're trying to create something that's got some sort of coloration that's suitable for a specific genre of music, I don't think it's more something you would do as a creative part of what you're putting into the sub. I think the goal is to reproduce whatever your artistic intent is, I would say.
This is what I want to hear.
Yeah. So I mean, I think the Demon Sub is something that it's a very, I don't know, the precision, the accuracy, the sort of dynamic, and it's a very different listening experience, and it's a very nice one, pleasant one, I think.
Oh yeah, I can believe, like, imagining yourself back in when recording those or playing with those pads. You would have enjoyed hearing your bass through it. Like,
well, yeah,
I guess so.
I don't know.
All right, Paul. I think it's time to test you on your cable coiling skills.
Oh boy!
I know, with the spaghetti challenge. So I think this time around I shall bring the infamous.
What's the sign say?
Yeah, no. It's all the times that we have.
Oh.
So I gotta give you some
8 seconds.
You guys might not know about this one. This one was done live during our 30th anniversary party, and I conceded it because I have the power to concede things, apparently. But the coils were not that much on point, Marcin. I'm sorry, I'm calling you out here. But then again, his name is up here, and it's a tough one to beat. So let's see.
What am I going for here? Speed or accuracy?
We're going for both. I have to say, when I conceded this, I wasn't completely lucid. So now I am, to the best of my abilities, of course. But
all right, who's last?
Actually, Carlos.
Oh, okay. He took his time.
Yeah, he did a nice coil though. So I'll try to chuck this in a way that it just uncoils. Don't judge. Hey, it looks awesome. It looks
not
decent.
Too bad.
I'll give you an advantage here by untwisting all of this mess that I did. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just gonna ask you to don't stand too close to the camera. And there you go. There you go. There's a 10 meters cable for our American friends. That's like 7 wheelbarrows and 5 arms or something like that. So it's in frame. Oh, a little bit over there. And whenever you're ready on your that's the way to do it. 3.
Oh, you got the cut.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, go. Oh, oh boy. I think we have a shot here at a record. I think we do. And this is one of the
I blew it at the last second.
Oh.
Oh, no, you got to tie the knot.
That's a fair and square 10. So that places you right. I'm sorry, Lou, again.
I'll take that.
Hey guys, but this one deserves some props, eh? I mean, story in punk rock and physics. And,
yeah.
And maybe let's write the number. So, thank you so
You're
much,
welcome.
Paul.
This was fun.
This was a delight. And to you, I have to say, tune in for the next episode. Thank you so much, Paul.
You got it. Thank you.